So I have spent about the last 15 to 20 years working as either a chief people officer in-house in organisations or working as a consultant with a number of businesses to think about their organisational design and how they then think about how they allocate the resource of their people in the right places to set them up for success and ensure that people are doing the right jobs for them, tapping into their brilliant skill sets, playing to their strengths, and ultimately delivering to the organisational goals. And really, that is sort of where we're going to start. So I'm going to just share some slides with you all so that we're all looking at the same thing. There we go. Let's just pop that on there. Presentation mode. Okay, so once I'm in this presentation mode, I tend to lose the ability to see absolutely everybody. So if I could ask Jane, if anybody's got their hand up at any point, if you could just give me a nod, let me know. I can randomly see your face. So if you could let me know that, that would be great. But please do stop and ask questions as we go through. It brings colour to obviously any of the dialogue and the conversation that we're having. So first things first, what are we going to cover in about the next hour? We're going to give you a moment to think about your business goals. Obviously, lots of lambing, I'm imagining. We're going to think about understanding organisational health. What does organisational health really mean? You've probably all got an idea, but let's get us all on the same page with that and make sure that we're using the same language and all of us thinking about the same things. We're then going to think about defining your organisational resources, and that really is thinking about your people and how they can drive your performance. And then we're going to think about your business today. So the people strengths and areas for focus. And that's when I'm going to put you into breakout groups. You're going to get some good chance to do some self-assessment, and you're also going to get the chance to learn from others and to think about what it is that other organisations in Bucks are thinking about as well, and how you can support each other. And then if we've got time at the end, we'll see how we go. We'll try and get a purpose statement, maybe worst case. We'll try and create a high level first draft resource allocation plan. So that would be things like what you are going to commit to as a result of the discussions that you've had. So nice easy one, I hope, to kick off. I'm just going to give you a second, and I want you to write down your 2024 business goals. And once you're done, I'd like you to use the emojis and give me a thumbs up, please, so that I know that we can move on. Thanks, Bella. Josh. And James, Pete. Okay. So, and the reason that we're thinking about business goals is that obviously, unless you are very, very clear on exactly where you are going, ultimately, how can you make the right decisions and choices in your business around how you allocate the people resources into the right places? Because I think we've all probably been in those situations where people have preferences, they might have specific strengths, they might have a particular desire to do something in an organisation, but ultimately, if what they want to do doesn't feed the organisational purpose and goals, then you're probably going to be missing out on some of the potential that you've got to help your people to deliver to the organisational purpose and so on. So that's why we start in that place, and it helps just to frame it for the rest of the session. Okay, so
I think Ian's got his Dave's got his hand up there.
Oh, go on, Dave. Let's. Hiya.
No, sorry, operator error when I was doing the thumbs up.
That's okay. We like a wave. No problem. All right, good stuff. So I'll just let you read this through just for a second. It speaks for itself. Okay. So, and again, the reason that we think about this is you can have the best business plan ever, but if you don't have the people resource to fulfill the roles that you need to have fulfilled to move your business forward, then that's going to keep you stuck. And what we really want to do is ensure that you know all of the steps to keep you completely unstuck and moving really fluidly towards your vision. And this feels a great time of year to be doing this, right at the beginning of the calendar year, whether your fiscal year falls in, you know, end of March or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's a nice point in time to be thinking about this and to put a line in the sand and put some plans in place for people, because regardless of where your fiscal year lands, most people think in calendar years. Okay. All right. So just an open question for you all, and I can see you now. So I just want to open it up to the room. Feel free to take yourselves off mute. What does organisational health mean to you? Anyone got any thoughts there? Go on, Dave. Go on, Dave.
Two things come to mind straight away. Cash flow is one of them.
Yeah.
And culture is the other.
Yeah. Huge. Absolutely huge. You've probably read all the books and seen all the quotes and whatever else, but if you culture eats strategy for breakfast, I think it is that Peter Drucker says. So absolutely, we need to be thinking about your culture as an absolute priority. But of course, if you haven't got the finances in place, there's not much you can do, is there? What else? What else does organisational health mean to you? Go on, Bella.
How streamlined your business is. So how quick you can have a vision to getting it actually actioned. So how streamlined your processes are.
Yeah, lovely. Have you got a plan in place to get there, and does everybody know it, and is it communicated well? Anyone else got any thoughts? Emma?
Just a happy feeling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How do people feel on a Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay.
But definitely a happy feeling. You can, throughout.
Yeah. How do people feel on a Sunday night about coming to work on a Monday? People, lovely little thing that's been all over LinkedIn recently, but it's true, isn't it? Thank you, Emma. Louise?
To have all aspects of your business working well together.
We've lost you. I think you're probably saying something quite important, but we can't hear you.
To have all aspects of your business working well together. So you.
Well,
can you hear me?
We get that first sentence, and then we lose you after all parts of the business working well together, and I'm like,
Yeah, so it's everything, all your people, your strategy, everything pulling together in the right direction to sort of have a healthy organisation.
Yeah, lovely. And
sorry, did you hear me?
We heard all of that perfectly. Thank you so much. And then there's the balance between all of those things. How do they coexist together? Does one area get more focus than it should do? Does some areas not get any focus at all? So really thinking about what it is that your business needs and apportioning the resource, including the people resource and the talent in the right areas to move forward nice and fluidly in the way in which you intend to. Okay, I'm going to move us on slightly. It just gets conversation going a little bit. Okay, so this is just, again, read it through, but they typically say that businesses with good organisational health have these things: vision, purpose and values, strategic objectives. Oh, you can, by the way, if anyone wants these slides afterwards, I'll just share them with Jane and she can share them out with you. So don't worry too much about capturing stuff if there are things on the screen that you like. Effective leadership goes without saying. If you don't have effective leadership, you've got very little. You've got people pulling in different directions. Culture, as Dave said, one that is psychologically safe. We keep hearing about that phrase as well, don't we? Where people are able to bring their full selves, where they can be creative, where there's no fear of sort of judgment or retribution almost in the organisation. Effective comms, great collaboration, teamwork works. Defined ways of working, your processes, as we discussed a second ago. Your customer focus. How are you creating value for your customers? And what about your customer's customer? Something that's so often overlooked. your customer's customer, critical to think about. If you're really thinking about selling and focusing on how you're going to build and grow your business, it's not enough just to be focused on the people that you're providing that service to. Who did they then provide the service to? That will start to speak their language. Ethical and responsible business, that means that you operate within the law, that you have good people practices, that you have good fiscal practices and so on. And then I put it in here in blue because this takes us as our segue into the work that we are really doing. So everybody is in the right roles in the organisation. Okay, so big question this, and don't worry, I'm going to give you a template to work on. So how effective is each part of your business today? And when we're thinking about this, I would like us to think about how effective is each part of your business today in relation to people. So we're going to be looking at finance as an example. I don't want to know about your balance sheet. I want to think about, have you got the right people resource in that team, and are they set up in the way that they need to be successful with the right skill set? So I'm going to share this with you. And this is what you're going to be working on in your groups. Of course, it's going to be individual. So I would like you to do it in whatever way works for you. If you're techie, take a screenshot of it and start to mark it up. If you're not, start to draw it out, and you can then start. So just grab a piece of paper and a pen. I'm expecting you to have a really scribbled all over piece of paper by the end of this session. I quite like drawing this out. It just works for me. I like to be able to write on things and so forth, but do what works for you. So just relatively quickly capture this. So you're just drawing a circle with 8 segments or wedges, and then just putting the titles to each of them. And then just give me a thumbs up when you've captured it in the way that you want to. Thanks, Janet. Guys. Okay. I think everybody looks like they might be done. I can just have a quick visual nod, and then I can see if I'm waiting. Yeah, lovely stuff. Okay, brilliant. Has anybody, again, feel free just to contribute here. Has anybody completed the Wheel of Life or the Fulfillment Wheel when they've been doing any one-to-one coaching or anything like that? No? Okay. The only reason I ask is that this will work in a very, very similar way. So it doesn't matter that you haven't. So what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to ask you to rank or score yourself in each section in your business. Now, I recognise that some of your businesses, you'll have full teams of people dealing with finance, as an example. Others of you might have one person that's dealing with finance and marketing. So just score it as is relevant for your organisation. And when you're thinking about that, be thinking about it in relation to how well is it performing? So is that part of your business delivering what you need it to deliver? And then just draw a line across where feels relevant. So let's say that your people team or your HR team. So when we're talking about people team, we're talking about anything that is related to a people touch point of experience in your organisation. So that's HR, that's somebody that might deal with L&D, might be someone who thinks about culture, it might be somebody who thinks about the values and links in with the vision from a leadership perspective. If you feel that it's working okay, but it could be much better. You're going to mark it somewhere around a 6, I would imagine. So just draw that line on whatever it is that you've drawn, and you're going to do that for the whole of your all of the cheese wedges. So I just don't overthink it. Just go through and just draw the lines where it feels relevant. Take a nice coloured pen if you've got one so that it's really obvious, but just make it really obvious for yourselves. And again, once you finish doing that, if you can just look up so that I can see that you've got a rough idea of where you're at.
Sorry, when you say draw a line, from where to where?
Yeah, so just across, you've got, let's say we're taking tech, Dave, as an example. So you've got lots of concentric rings on that tech line. So if you think that tech is operating, you know, from a performance perspective at about 60%, just draw a line across that cheese segment on the concentric ring that it's appropriate to, just roughly.
Okay.
Yeah, just approximately.
I think I know where you're at.
If I hover it, can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can see my, can you see my
actually,
cursor?
No.
Okay. I don't think I can mark this up while I'm on the screen.
So are you talking drawing a line from the centre out to the point, or were you talking going across the
going across? Yeah, going
so,
across. So you're going to end up with something that's quite jaggedy around the circle.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. No worries. And if you haven't written the numbers on there, obviously write the corresponding number to the way in which you've scored it so that you can remember it if you look back on it. Okay, once you've done that bit, again, on a fresh piece of paper or somewhere on that same page, I would like you to rank in order of priority in your business each of those areas. So if you feel that the most important area from a resource allocation perspective of people for you to achieve your 2024 business goals this year is sales and marketing, as an example, put that first. So just write 1 to 8 and just write the order that is most important. So if your tech stack means absolutely nothing in terms of delivering lambs, Bella, then that might go 8th. Yeah. If actually it's really important on the farm, then pop it higher up. And again, don't overthink it too much. Just go with your guts, just to give you a feel for where you need to be focusing. Yeah, that happens. Okay, so finish those bits off. But yeah, Janet, I'm just going to highlight what you've popped in the chat there, and that is exactly the purpose for doing this exercise. So the highest priority for the business objective score is the smallest segment on the wheel. So you've scored it lowest in relation to, people resource and performance. And that is exactly why you want to do this. If you've got something that's really high up on your list, but it's performing brilliantly, that's great. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you've got something that's really high up as a priority and it's at a 2 or a 3 right now, then you probably know where you need to get some focus relatively quickly. And it's okay, because you've got 11 more months this year to get that sorted. So this is all about getting some positive things happening so that you can have some positive impact. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to drop you into some groups in a second. So we've done this bit. Now what we're going to do is pop you into some chat rooms to talk to your colleagues about what you notice. So what areas need the most focus? Which areas attract too much of your focus, and why is that? What have you been ignoring? Does that matter? And as the leader, what do you need to do now? So I know in my own business, the area that attracts too much focus is me facilitating like this, because it's my favourite part of my job. What do I ignore? My finance. I hate invoicing, so I'm trying to get much better at that. But, it gives you an idea. Your businesses are probably far more significant than my small consultancy. So start to have a think about that. So take a picture of this screen. I'll take a screenshot of it. And if I can, if it lets me, sometimes it doesn't when we're in Teams chats that I haven't set up, I'll try and pop it in the chat for you as well. But I'm going to, Paula's kindly going to drop everybody into chat rooms now, and I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to talk to your colleagues about this. Use some coaching questions, take a chunk of time yourself to just talk about what comes up. Use 3 or 4 minutes each to go through the things that you're thinking about, and for the colleagues that are supporting that person, ask some lovely open questions. What else? Why is that happening? What do you need to do about it? What are you avoiding? What are you ignoring? And so on. So, thank you for popping that in there, Jane. Okay, so if I could ask you to drop everybody into chat rooms now for about 10 minutes, and you'll get a notification when you're being pulled back out, guys. And then when we come back, I'm going to debrief so that we can capture some of the group learning in the room. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, hopefully you got some benefit from having some smaller group conversations. If I can just open it up to the floor and just ask for a bit of cross group sharing. So Janet, if I can come to you first and see where your conversation is focused in your group, that would be great.
We had a good conversation. I think both of us had lowest scores in the 2 sort of segments we both thought which were the most important, around marketing and sales and business development to deliver our goals this year. And we talked about resourcing for Emma regarding her husband does all the quoting, and if she does more marketing, he won't have enough time to do the quotes. So they actually need to find some other way, whether it's a system or a person that can do a level of quotes before her husband kicks in, because he's obviously out and about doing quotes all the time, and she's a bit worried if she were to get more business, he wouldn't have the time to fulfill them. Yeah. And from my point of view, my lower score was very evident to me in the fact that it's called marketing. I have a creative team and none of them have a marketing background. So I have a graphic designer, I have a content creator who's brilliant with digital videos. My co-founder, it calls himself creative director and is lovely at making beautiful products and formulations, but I don't actually have anyone, and they call themselves a creative team. I don't actually have anyone in my creative team that has a marketing background.
It does marketing. Yeah.
Create something new and lovely, but I don't have that marketing piece there.
Yeah, and I was sharing with Jane just before we came onto this call. I said, why has Janet got Delilah after her name? That's some really odd nickname for somebody called Janet. She's like, no, she's got a business called Delilah Cosmetics. I was like, I know it. I buy the products.
Well, I'm pleased,
so I just wanted to share. Well, what's her name? Beauty and the Boutique lady Katie is very good at promoting your yeah. So there you go. So there's some marketing flickering in there somewhere.
Yeah, but she's doing that. No one in my team.
Yeah.
Anyway, I use her constantly and I go, look what she's doing. Look how she markets something for us. But yeah, I haven't got that person in my team at the moment.
Yeah. And where are you spending, where have you got too much resource, Janet? Can you identify that?
I don't think I've got too much resource anywhere. Yeah. I had too much resource. I wouldn't say in any segment. We're very lean and mean. There's only 10 of us.
Yeah.
And I think 6 of them are part-time job sharers. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, understood. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know who was in whose group, so I'm going to just randomly pick. And if you were in Janet's group, then I think you just said it was yourself and Emma. So if I come to you, Josh, is that okay?
Of course, yeah. Thanks, Caroline.
Stuff.
I was in with Pete, so we had a discussion. We're both in a relatively similar spot, really, where products and services aren't limiting factors for us this year. From the products that we offer, we're in smaller size businesses, but 10 to 20 people type sizes, so largely a reasonable amount of resource available, but we both sat there and said, yeah, we need more sales and business development. Definitely that was the key criteria. I think that's probably going to be a common theme here, and we were really lowly prioritizing the premises building an environment, which I think is a post-COVID thing where everyone tends to work a lot more from home, but we probably didn't consider the parts which go into facilitating the working from home as much. Nothing's really attracting too much focus for us, other than the areas which we kind of identified as the ones that we needed to focus on.
Very good. Yeah, it's interesting that the environment piece, there's split camps at the moment, aren't there? People are either going fully remote or remote first, as people like to phrase it, or there's a bit more of a move to get people back together in offices. I think the ultimate thing there is to remember that it's not the pool tables and the coffee machines, it's the culture, it's how people feel about it, not specifically about the environment. If you've got some resource cash to spend there, then great, but it's ultimately about the purpose and people connecting with the vision and the meaning. And people talk about it now as mattering, actually, as opposed to meaning. So meanings is how it used to be referred to, but it's now referred to as mattering. So what are the things that matter and the things that engage individuals? So what you're looking for is maximum personal fulfillment alongside maximum organizational contribution, and they meet at an apex. It's this little bit here, and they refer to that little apex as engagement. So work out the things that you need to do there. All right. Flex is seen as very desirable, though. I've just been doing some work with a really large organization on their EVP, and one of the most commonly cited things that the individuals valued around what they deem to be a benefit in that business is that they're treated as grown-ups, that they are able to work when works for them, that there's high trust in the organization and so forth. So, you got to get the balance, right. Okay. Who else we got? Dan, if I can come to you. You're next to Josh, so that's nice and easy on my screen for me.
Hello.
Hello.
So we listened to Bella's her fulfillment wheel more so for the duration. So should I explain hers or mine or everyone's?
Well, just anything that came up, if there were any real themes or what you're taking from the conversation or thinking about personally.
Sure. Okay. I'll quickly do mine. So we're looking at sales is at the top of our list, and it's the one that I had lowest on the fulfillment wheel. So although I think our marketing is fairly good, but just converting things into a job, into an order, is something we need to focus on to make sure that we're getting work. I think the market's changing quite a bit, whereas our residential customers are maybe not spending as much now because budgets are lower, whereas commercial, they're still spending. We just have to really focus on where we're getting our sales from. So that was what we have to focus on. So that's what we'll be doing this year. The conversation with Bella and Dave, we were talking about Bella's new cricket pavilion, which is quite an interesting project, and what she needs to do to make sure that all happens, and the people that she needs to bring in and source. And Dave had some people that he can sort of recommend to her, but also about marketing that prior to the completion of it, and just kind of like balancing it all and making sure you're not exposing on one thing. So it was quite interesting listening to Bella's, but I think she's got everything kind of in the right order, and I think she knows what she's doing anyway, and it sounds quite exciting.
Bella's disagreeing, vehemently shaking her head. Okay, all right, but yeah, that's really helpful. And begin with the end in mind. That classic Covey statement. Think about where you're going, what it is that you want to achieve, and work your way backwards. Because unless you've got that bit that exists between where you are today and where you're going, with a plan in between, your strategy. People hate that word; they get scared of it. It's just a plan. Don't overthink it. Then you're never going to get there. But if you know exactly where you're going in the steps, then you can do everything that you can do. So, okay, really helpful. I'm not going to come to everybody, but hopefully that got the thinking going and helped you to identify some of the areas from a people perspective. Just want to pick up on Emma was mentioned around AI. Sorry, around the quoting or the bidding or the proposals. I think it was Emma that we were talking about. I was at an event the other day where they were talking about AI and how that can really, really support to really speed up things like proposal writing and bidding. And the only scary thing there is that there are currently 11,000 different AI apps that you could access. So it's working out which are the good ones. But there are some specialists out there that might be able to help you to identify how you can use AI. Maybe that's another event, Jane, for somebody specialist there. Okay, Emma, sorry, have you just popped your hand up?
Yeah, I've got to get him off of his piece of A4 paper first before I can even approach anything. Yeah,
just start him off with ChatGPT. It's a nice easy one. That feels, I think it's only been around for just over a year, but it feels like now that's the one that everyone knows, and it seems to be relatively reliable. But there are iterations of all sorts. So yeah, it's a big old world out there. Okay, so I'm going to move us on. All right, so we're going to think about the current landscape in your business. So in terms of your talent, thinking about these things, I'm going to put you back into breakout rooms to have a think about this. But I'm going to give you a few minutes first, just to scribble down some things in relation to these questions. So thinking about your talent, what one thing would make the biggest difference to your business success? Might be somebody to do bid writing, might be more talent in sales, or optimizing the people that you've got to perform better in sales. Start thinking about individuals. Who are your high performers? Who are your high potentials that you could get more from? Who isn't performing so well? And whose talents could be optimized in other areas? So where have people got skills that actually in a small business, perhaps they could be using elsewhere? Then what talent you might be missing. And then if there are any really critical conversations that you need to have, that's a biggie. I think in lots of smaller organizations, people find it, interestingly, because you're so close-knit, harder to have those critical or challenging conversations for fear that you're going to offend somebody, or that's going to rock the apple cart in terms of how it feels to work in our business. But ultimately, if you don't have those conversations, what is not said comes out anyway, and it gets worse. It just exacerbates it, amplifies the negative outcome of it. So take a few moments just to jot down your thinking, and then I'm going to put you back into groups. I think we're going to have Karis, I understand you need to leave the session at about 10:30. Is that right? Okay, no problem. So we'll just we're going to just change the groups very slightly when you go back into those chat rooms. Might help if you put initial, bear in mind other people might see this bit of paper if you're scribbling all over it. So go careful with it from a confidentiality perspective. But you might want to put some initials in your cheese wedges. So the high performers and the not so great performers. I wouldn't use whole names, maybe just a first initial. Maybe another one to think about there, just on your behalf while I'm mulling this over, is where is your investment? So where is your people investment really paying dividends? And maybe who is taking too much of your financial resource for what they return? The difficult things to think about. What would it mean to get some of those things sorted? Give you another minute or so to finish scribbling down some thoughts before I get you into breakout rooms again. Something I haven't included in here. Again, sometimes it's helpful to sit in silence, something I rarely do, but it helps. Think about yourself. What are you not doing, or what are you doing too much of? Where do you need to support your own development? And what should that look like? Where's the budget going to come from for that? So often as leaders, we think about everybody else in our organisations, and so rarely put ourselves first. If we don't know that we're fulfilling our potential as the leader, then very rarely can we help other people shine as well. Okay. Carry on the thinking. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms again. We've got time for another 10 minutes. Karis, lovely to meet you briefly. I don't think I'll be here when you get back, but I hope the rest of the session is good. But I hope that was
very much. Thank you.
thoughtful,
No, really
thought-provoking. Yep. Good stuff. All right, good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Pleasure. Bye. Lovely. Okay, Paula, could we pop everyone into groups again, please? And they're going to change very slightly just to accommodate Karis leaving the group. Okay. So hopefully that deepened the conversations a bit further. Who would like to, I won't pick on anyone in particular, but who would like to share some of the insight that's come up for you?
Oh,
thanks, Emma.
Have a chat. Well, Janet and I faced a lot of the same issues. We've both grown. So we're talking about taking on new people and checks and measures to make sure they're actually performing. And we talked about how we have broken down people's salaries into day rates, cost of the business, as part of an assessment to see, are they performing well? How we can bring our underperformers up. We talked about having regular sort of appraisals and review meetings. What else was it? Yeah, and how some people are sort of drifting and kind of not really doubling down on what they're supposed to be doing, but doing what they enjoy instead.
Yeah. So I'm having a little chuckle because there's a model called the Blessing White X model of engagement, and they talk about those people as the hamsters, because they just find a cozy little corner that they like to be snug in, and nothing to see over here, I'm just doing the work, and so on. And so yeah, they talk about them as honeymooners and hamsters. So the honeymooners being the people that come into organizations and they don't really know what their job is yet, so it still feels quite nice and it's quite comfortable and so on. But then the others who are really deliberately in their little nest under the desk, or the metaphorical desk, or whatever it is. Obviously on the other side of that, you've got the crash and burners who are giving too much, but it's worth noting who's on what side there for sure. Just thinking about the helping people to understand how they are performing in your organization. You're probably doing this, but just to be really clear about it, not too dissimilar to the conversation that we're having today, getting them to do some self-assessment. So if you can get them thinking about things and connecting things for themselves, that then is the start point of a great conversation. And it doesn't mean always then that you have to be the person giving the really rubbish feedback. Hopefully they start to identify it and are responsible for it themselves. And so to set up those reviews more in a encouragement to self-assess and start the conversation from there is very powerful, because it means that people have to take a bit of responsibility themselves and it doesn't all sit with you. I don't know if that's helpful. Okay, good stuff. Okay, who else would like to contribute? Thanks, Emma. Go on, Dave.
Yeah, we were with James, was in our group, and he's just had a real kick in the gut because one of his staff that he's presumably been invested in and has got her up to almost qualifying as an accountant has suddenly been poached by a London firm who've doubled the salary and told her to work from home. Well, I don't think you can really compete with that on a level playing field. So that must be very demoralising, actually. But we then started a discussion about how artificial intelligence is going to come into the accountancy arena, possibly moving forward. And we were talking about James perhaps getting his head around that and investing in himself, or getting an understanding of how that could help him to push his business forward and go in that direction a bit more.
Yeah, possibly. And I certainly don't know enough about the AI platforms that support with finance, but there's definitely lots and lots out there. James, I can probably put you into contact with somebody that might be able to point you in the right direction of some of the tools that might be the best to support there. If that's of interest, just get in contact with me afterwards.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. You triggered something there for me, Dave, and now it's just parted my brain. Sorry, it's my age as well, it happens. I was thinking about the person that's left on your behalf, James, and just making sure, just an encouragement to all of you, if you've got those critical people in your businesses, those really key sort of stalwarts, if they're not there, it causes you a huge problem. Make sure you're having those regular conversations about their motivators, so that and give them permission to say, actually, I really want to work in a massive London firm and I want you to double my salary. I know you can't do that. Because at least then you're able to succession plan. You're able, what might be coming down the line. So always think about what those intrinsic motivators are to your individuals. And, if people need to be externally motivated, then that's not always the most helpful. They've got to be intrinsically motivated from an engagement perspective. So my encouragement is always just to have the honest conversations. And what is it? Where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing long term? How long do you see yourself with our organisation? And it's a horrible conversation, because really you don't want them to go anywhere because you put all that investment in them. But ultimately, if they then have something else that is pulling them somewhere else, you won't be able to do anything about it, candidly. Not really. If what you have isn't what they're looking for, then ultimately, if you can work together, that tends to make that process slightly easier for everybody, actually, and you can succession plan. So thanks, Dave. Really, really helpful to add into the conversation. Who else would like to contribute? Go on, Bella.
I didn't raise it in our group circle, but one of the questions that you asked before we went into chats was, what am I not doing as a business owner and personal, and what do I need to do to support my own development? And actually, that's a question I never really ask myself, because you're so busy managing all your other team, thinking, oh, we need to get that person trained up on first aid or this type of process. But actually, when you said that, it struck a chord with me, and I thought, actually, some of the things I'm struggling with in finding them within my team, I could probably do if I had the necessary training, and I would prefer to do, because there are certain roles in your business that you want to keep your finger on that pulse. You don't want to outsource it. So therefore, you need to improve your own training on that particular area. And I did think that resonated with me. So I'm currently one of the diversifications within the business. We've got this cricket pavilion, and I know nothing about construction, but I'm ultimately going to be project managing that. And I did think actually I ought to get some sort of more understanding of construction and how it works and why it works that way. I'm not saying go on a full construct, but I do need to become more up to speed. I can't project manage something that I don't understand. And that struck a chord with me. And I just thought in all circumstances, it's probably relevant to all businesses to constantly review your own training. And AI is another thing. I know AI would be a massive help in a lot of things within my business, but I know nothing about it. So I need to look at developing it myself before I can possibly take someone on, because you can't manage someone and they're not going to give you that respect if you don't understand what you're managing them to do. So if you're asking someone to go onto AI but you don't fully understand it, you're going to look like a bit of a
and I mean, I guess there's that blend of we can't know everything, and if we're hiring experts, then they need to be the consultants to our organisation. But to have a concept that I guess AI, or a consideration that AI could be critical to our business growth. I mean, it is scary, some of the stuff. You can get avatars of yourself right now. So, you know, imagine doing your own training videos and multiplying yourself out by 10 to everybody else. You can, anyway, go down that rabbit hole, people. Enjoy it. Let me know how you go. Thank you, Bella. Yeah, I think, you know, interesting conversation. Okay, a little bit conscious of time, and I could talk to you about this content forever, but I know that at some point Jane is going to say, Caroline, move it on, please. So let me just nudge us on a touch. Okay, just a question for you. Just have a think about this yourselves in the room. Just scribble down anything that comes to you, just for your own thinking. It's so interesting. I think probably when you're, you know, Jane and I facilitating, we're noticing some of the funny smiles and the nods that are happening when you're thinking about some of these questions. So you're not telling us anything, but you're telling us everything at the same time, guys. Okay. Final thing from me. So personal takeaways and commitments, because unless you really think about what you're going to do with all of this, if you don't commit to anything, this is just a nice conversation. You're just part of a nice network. So it's really, what difference will it make? So what do you need to do? And by when? What difference will it make? And what help do you need? You've probably got a whole bunch of stuff that has come up for you in the time that you've had to think this morning. And I think our gut feel is that we just pop it on a list and we write it top to bottom, and that's the list that we've got to focus on. My encouragement to anybody when they're thinking about any of this is to always think about the urgent important. So what's the stuff that you need to do immediately and it is urgent, and put that in a separate box. And then the stuff that is not urgent but is really important. So that's the long-term planning, the long-term investments, the critical stuff that will build into your strategy to help you to achieve your goals. It often takes a lot more than just a to-do point on a list. So really think about what that is and block out chunks of time to focus on those things. Bella.
Just on from that, my secretary bought me the productivity method book, which
love it. Never heard of it. Go on.
I can't recommend it enough. So it's basically what you just said in a nutshell, but in a diary format. But it is, I'm sure there's hundreds of them out here, but I can't recommend it enough. It's called the Productivity Method by Grace Beverley, and it's a really useful tool to use in the office to keep you focused, because it's so easy to go off into millions of tangents and then not get the job done that you went in the office to do.
Yeah,
so I really
fabulous.
recommend it.
Thanks, Bella. Okay, so I'd love to give you a bit more time to think about these things, but I think that Jane is going to be able to facilitate some conversation in the next part of your session together today. So this is just a bit of a summary for you, just me closing off my session really. So ensuring that your great people are developed and use their talents and grow, they will perform at the highest levels and hopefully remain engaged in your business. And ultimately, you'll create a culture where people are productive, happy and fulfilled. If anybody does want to link in, that QR code takes you straight to my LinkedIn. If you've got any questions about this session or anything that you want to follow up with me on, please feel free to get in contact, and happy to have any conversations and follow up to this. But for the time being, let me stop sharing, because I realised that even in parts of those conversations, I've just left the slide massive on the screen. So sorry about that, but I guess at least you didn't feel that everyone was looking at you. But I hope that session has been helpful to get some of your thinking going about your human or your people resource allocation, and that it's taking you nicely into your next session, Jane.
Caroline, thank you. That's been absolutely fascinating. Really thought-provoking, and that is what we're here to do at the end of the day. We've come here to listen and to learn, and I think we've all probably taken something away from that actually we really can apply. And that's the critical thing, is can we make a difference with what we've heard this morning? And I think there are bound to be some things that we can do that. So sincere thank you for coming in and sharing with that and making such an interactive session this morning. So thank you so much for that.
Lovely to meet you all. Thanks for having me.